They planned a family vacation without telling me and left me home to watch the dogs. I'm Sarah, I'm 20, and I still live at home with my parents and my 3 brothers in the suburbs of Seattle. It's not ideal, but with college tuition and rent prices being what they are, staying home was the most reasonable option. I've never really had any big drama with my family. We're not the type to hug a lot or do long emotional talks, but I always felt like we were close. Or at least, I thought we were. This all started on a random Tuesday night. My mom had made her usual baked ziti, and we were sitting around the dinner table. It was my parents, me, and all 3 of my brothers, Ethan, Jacob, and Logan. I was halfway through my plate when Jacob, who always talks with his mouth full, says something like, "So we'll need to be packed Thursday night, right? Our flight's Friday morning." I looked up, fork in hand. Wait, what flight? Everyone went kind of quiet. Like, sudden quiet. My mom's eye shot to Jacob with this sharp look like he'd just dropped a swear word in church, and Ethan immediately changed the subject like he was trying to cover up a crime. So anyway, the Seahawks game was wild last weekend. But it was too late. I put my fork down and looked around the table. What flight are you talking about? No one said anything for a second. Then my mom forced a smile and said, "It's nothing, just a little getaway. Nothing big." That's when I knew. That instant I knew. This wasn't a last-minute thing. This wasn't a random little getaway. This was something they'd planned for a while and decided not to tell me about. Jacob looked guilty. Ethan avoided eye contact. Logan kept eating like nothing was happening. And my dad, he just sat there like he wanted to disappear into his glass of water. "Where are you going?" I asked again, trying to stay calm, but feeling my stomach twist up like a rubber band. My mom hesitated. "Orlando. It's just for a few days." "You're all going to Florida?" I said, blinking. "Without me?" No one said yes, but no one denied it either. My mom just sighed and said, "Sarah, it's not what you think. It's really not a big deal." I felt like someone had pulled the chair out from under me. We'd never gone on a family trip without each other. Never. Even last summer, when I had a summer course, they scheduled our trip around my final, so I could come. And now they were planning a trip to Orlando behind my back? I pushed my plate away. I wasn't hungry anymore. "How long have you been planning this?" No answer. Was I ever going to find out? Or were you just going to hope I didn't notice when the house was empty for a week? My mom finally spoke. "It's just that you've been so busy lately. With school and work. We didn't think you'd want to come." That made me laugh. Out loud. "You didn't think I'd want to go to Orlando with my family? Are you serious?" Ethan finally chimed in, his voice low. "It's not like that. We just figured. I don't know. Maybe it would be easier this way." "Easier for who?" I asked. "For you? Because it sure wasn't going to be easier for me when I found out you all left me behind." At that point, no one had anything to say. The silence was louder than anything. I stood up and walked out of the dining room, went straight to my room, and shut the door. I didn't cry. Not right away. At first, I just stood there, staring at my desk like it might explain any of it to me. I kept going over every conversation from the last month in my head. All the little things that didn't seem important at the time. The vague way my mom mentioned the busy spring. How Ethan kept dodging plans with me on certain weekends. The sudden obsession with booking appointments later in the month. I felt stupid for not putting it together sooner. But mostly, I just felt hurt. Deep down, cold in the bones kind of hurt. I'd always thought I was close with my family. Maybe not best friend close, but I'd never thought I was the one they'd exclude. If it had been a misunderstanding, fine. But the way they reacted, the silence, the deflection, the guilt in Jacob's face, it was obvious. They'd made a conscious decision to leave me out. And what stung the most was the realization that not one of them fought for me to be included. Not my mom. Not my dad. Not even my brothers, who I thought were my allies in this house. No one said, "Hey, maybe we should tell Sarah." Or if they did, no one pushed hard enough for it to matter. That night, I lay in bed and stared at the ceiling for hours. I didn't text anyone. Didn't scroll through my phone. I just kept thinking, what did I do wrong? And the more I thought about it, the more I realized I didn't do anything wrong. They just didn't care enough. And that was a truth I wasn't ready for. I barely slept that night. My thoughts kept circling around the dinner table moment like a broken loop, each replay making me feel more pathetic for not saying more. But what was there to say when you realize your own family doesn't even think of you as someone who matters enough to include? When morning came, I got up without a word to anyone and just went through the motions. Brushed my teeth, got dressed, went downstairs to pour myself some coffee like everything was normal. Nobody else was in the kitchen. It was one of those tense silences that hangs in the air even when no one's around. Like the whole house was holding its breath. I didn't bring it up. I couldn't. Not yet. Later that afternoon, I overheard my mom on the phone. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop or anything. I had gone into the laundry room to grab a clean hoodie, and she was sitting in the sunroom with the sliding door cracked open, talking loud enough that I caught parts of it whether I wanted to or not. She was talking to someone. I think it was my aunt, based on the tone, and I heard her say something like, "No, Sarah's staying behind. We needed someone to take care of Max and Luna. You know how they get when they're bored, they practically stop eating." That was it. The sentence hit me like a slap. So that was the plan. Not only was I excluded from the trip, not even considered, but I was assigned a job. Dog sitter. Babysitter for the family pets while they jetted off to Florida to ride roller coasters and drink poolside cocktails. I felt my face get hot, like my body was trying to keep up with the rush of disbelief and quiet rage spreading through me. I backed out of the laundry room, hoodie still in my hands, and went up to my room without saying anything. My ears were ringing. I needed a second to breathe. I sat on my bed and stared at the two dog leashes hanging on the coat rack by the stairs through the mental image in my head. Max and Luna. The golden retriever brothers we'd had since I was 13. Sweet dogs, honestly. This wasn't their fault. But the realization that my family hadn't even thought this through enough to ask me or talk to me about it, that they just decided I'd stay behind, like that was my natural place, made something tighten in my chest. It wasn't just that they didn't invite me. It was that they needed someone to stay home, and instead of dealing with it like normal people, maybe asking me if I'd be willing or finding a sitter, they just left me out and let me find out by accident. And maybe the worst part was realizing how matter-of-fact my mom sounded on that call. Like it was already locked in. Like it was obvious. Of course Sarah's not going. Who else would watch the dogs? The second she said it, everything else clicked into place. That time last week when she asked if I had any big plans for the end of the month, all casual-like, while pretending to scroll through her phone. The random reminder Ethan gave me 2 days ago about how Max needed his arthritis meds in the morning now and not the evening. The little notes on the fridge about feeding schedules that hadn't been there before. I was never part of the trip. I was the cover. The excuse. The built-in solution to a problem they didn't even have the decency to acknowledge. I didn't cry. I'd done that already. I sat there, hoodie bunched in my lap, and felt this strange wave of clarity settle over me. I wasn't going to confront them. Not yet. What would be the point? They clearly didn't see what they were doing as wrong. They'd just twisted into some version of, "We thought you were too busy," or "We didn't want to burden you with the travel," or "You're so good with the dogs, we knew they'd be happiest with you." I could already hear it. No, I wasn't going to give them the chance to play dumb or make excuses. I was going to play it cool. Smile. Nod. Pretend everything was fine. Let them think I was just quietly hurt and would move on like always. But I wasn't going to forget it. And I wasn't going to just sit around doing what they expected. I had no idea yet what I was going to do, but I knew one thing for sure. I was done playing the quiet, dependable daughter. The one who always stepped up when nobody else wanted to. The one who made it easy for them to take advantage without even realizing they were doing it. If they were so comfortable leaving me behind, maybe I'd show them what that really looked like. I made the decision 3 days after the dinner. 3 days of walking through the house, pretending nothing was wrong, feeding the dogs, doing my usual chores, answering in short replies when someone tried to make small talk. My parents didn't bring up the trip again. I think they were hoping I'd either forget or silently accept it like I always did. I don't know which would have been worse. My brothers didn't say much either. Logan asked once if I was mad, but it was the kind of question people ask when they already know the answer and just want to pretend they don't. By the 3rd day, I had already packed what I needed. Not everything, just enough. A backpack with my laptop, charger, 2 weeks worth of clothes, and my toiletries. The stuff I didn't want to leave behind, my passport, a small box of jewelry, a few printed photos I couldn't replace. I packed those in a second bag. Everything else could stay. I didn't care anymore. I had called Haley, a girl I knew from one of my writing seminars at school. We weren't close, not really, but she was always the kind of person who seemed to genuinely care when she asked how you were doing. When I told her I needed a place to crash for a few days, she didn't hesitate. She said her roommate was gone for the month and I could take the spare bed. It wasn't anything fancy, just a 2-bedroom apartment near the university district with mismatched furniture and a temperamental heater. But it was quiet and it was away, and that's all I wanted. The morning they left, I stayed in my room until I heard the front door shut. Max and Luna started barking like they always did when someone left. I looked out the window and watched them load the last of the luggage into the back of the SUV. My mom was in a long cardigan with her sunglasses already on. Ethan was dragging a suitcase across the lawn. Jacob had headphones in. My dad stood next to the car checking his phone. No one even looked up at the house. No wave. No check-in. No goodbye. The dogs quieted down after the engine started. I listened to the tires crunch over the driveway and then fade down the street. I waited another 10 minutes just in case someone forgot something and turned back. But they didn't. I grabbed my bags and went downstairs. Before I left, I wrote a note. I didn't want to text. I didn't want to have that conversation by phone, where I'd be met with performative shock or guilt-tripping or half-hearted attempts to pretend like they didn't know what they'd done. I wanted them to read it. Really read it. I kept it short. Since you didn't think I'd mind staying behind to watch the dogs, I figured it wouldn't matter if I left too. I found a place to stay. Max and Luna will be fine for a few days. I filled their bowls. The rest is up to you. I didn't sign it. I didn't say love, Sarah. I didn't say anything beyond that. Just folded the note in half and left it on the kitchen table next to the coffee pot. Then I slipped out the back door, locked it behind me, and walked to the bus stop with both bags on my shoulders. When I got to Haley's place, she handed me a spare key and a blanket and didn't ask any questions. I dropped my bags in the corner of the room, plugged in my phone just long enough to send her the gas money she refused to ask for, and then I powered it off. I didn't want to hear the missed calls. I didn't want to read the texts. I wanted silence. I wanted space. I wanted, for once, to not be the one left holding the leash when no one else wanted the responsibility. I turned my phone back on 2 days after they got back. I wasn't planning to, but I needed to check my email for something school-related, and the second the screen lit up, it nearly froze from the flood of missed calls and messages. 22 missed calls from my mom. 13 from my dad. Even Logan tried me a few times, which he never does. There were voicemails too, but I didn't listen to any of them. I just read the texts, one after another, while sitting on the edge of the bed at Haley's place with the dog next door barking through the wall. At first, they were polite. Just simple question marks and casual versions of "Where are you?" Like they weren't sure if I was ignoring them or just out for a walk. But after the first couple of hours, they changed. Fast. By the evening of their return, my mom had sent a full paragraph accusing me of abandoning my responsibilities and calling me immature and self-centered. She said they came home expecting to find me and instead found a flippant, passive-aggressive note and a house that smelled like wet dog food and abandonment. She said Max had peed by the door and Luna looked emotionally distressed. She actually used those words. Emotionally distressed. As if I had traumatized them. My dad's messages were colder. He didn't even try to disguise the disappointment. He wrote, "This was unbelievably irresponsible. We trusted you with something simple, and you couldn't even manage that. This isn't how adults behave, Sarah. No greeting. No concern. No acknowledgement of anything leading up to this. Just straight to judgment like he was delivering a performance review instead of talking to his daughter." Jacob sent a message that just said, "Seriously? What the hell?" That was it. No follow-up. No context. Ethan sent, "Not cool. You really messed up," followed by one of those passive-aggressive, "but I guess you don't care, so whatever," type messages that people use when they want to guilt you into replying. The only one who didn't message was Logan. They made it clear, over and over again, that I had ruined their return. That they were deeply disappointed and hurt beyond words. My mom even said she had to call a neighbor to come check on the dogs the night they got back, because they weren't sure if I had even left food. She knew I had. I said so in the note. But I guess the truth didn't matter when outrage was easier. What none of them seemed to care about, what none of them even mentioned, was why I left. Not one message asked if I was okay. Not one message said they were sorry for how they handled the trip, or even acknowledged that I might have had a reason for walking out. It was all about what I did wrong. How they felt. How I had let them down. It was like my note didn't exist beyond the inconvenience it caused. Like I hadn't told them exactly what happened, and exactly why I left. Like all that mattered was that I broke the pattern and didn't stick around to clean up their mess this time. That was the part that really stuck with me. Not the insults. Not even the exaggerated dramatics about the dogs. It was the silence around the actual problem. The way they talked around it. Like the whole Florida trip had never happened. Like I just snapped out of nowhere for no reason. And honestly, I think that's what made me angriest. They wanted to act like I was being childish, petty, vindictive. But they were the ones who excluded me. They were the ones who lied by omission, made plans without me, and left me to pick up the pieces. And now that I didn't quietly accept it, I was suddenly the villain. I didn't respond. I powered my phone off again and left it on the desk by the window. I sat back on the bed and stared at the ceiling for a long time after that, listening to the hum of traffic outside and the occasional creak of footsteps in the apartment above. I wasn't surprised by how they reacted, but that didn't make it hurt any less. The first few weeks after I left were a blur of emails, train schedules, and long walks with no destination. Haley let me stay longer than I expected, and I tried not to take advantage of that kindness, but I knew I couldn't keep living on her couch forever. I spent most of my time job hunting, looking at Craigslist ads, refreshing local listings, and emailing anyone who didn't seem like a scam. I applied for everything from bookstore clerk to temp receptionist. I didn't care what it was. I just needed something that would help me get out of Seattle and start fresh somewhere they couldn't guilt-trip me into coming back. Eventually, I landed a part-time admin job through a staffing agency. Nothing glamorous, just answering phones and doing some data entry at a logistics company in Portland. The pay wasn't great, but it was steady, and it came with enough hours to cover rent on a small room I found in a shared house on the east side. The house was old and creaky, with peeling paint and a front porch that leaned slightly to the left, but the people were kind and the room had a window that let in real light in the morning. That felt like enough. I didn't know anyone in the city when I moved. I took the train down with a suitcase, a duffel bag, and the weight of every voicemail I hadn't listened to. But I met people quickly. My housemates, Jules, Mariah, and Ken, were strange in the best way. Mariah made ceramics in the basement and left mugs cooling on every surface in the house. Ken worked night shifts at a bakery and always came home with extra pastries he insisted we eat, so he wouldn't feel guilty throwing them away. Jules was studying counseling and didn't blink when I said I didn't really want to talk about my family. She just handed me a cup of tea and said okay. It was the first time in years that I felt like I could breathe, like I wasn't walking on eggshells or waiting to be scolded for saying the wrong thing. No one in that house expected anything from me beyond basic decency and rent on the first of the month. I started cooking again, not just microwave pasta or cereal, but actual food. I made soups and casseroles and banana bread. I brought some to work once, and my manager liked it so much she asked if I'd make one for her kid's birthday. I didn't even know I needed that kind of validation until it landed in my lap. Work was simple, repetitive, and peaceful. I didn't have to think too hard or fake any enthusiasm. I came in, did my job, and left on time. The office was quiet, and people mostly kept to themselves, which suited me just fine. I started bringing a book to read on my lunch breaks, sitting outside when the weather allowed, watching traffic pass without feeling like the world was rushing ahead without me. I didn't tell anyone at work about what happened with my family. I didn't need to. It wasn't like I was hiding it. I just didn't feel like it defined me anymore. That part of my life felt like something that happened to someone else. A younger version of me who still thought that if I just did everything right, people would treat me the way I treated them. Living in Portland didn't fix everything, but it gave me space. Space to rebuild my routines, to figure out what I actually liked without someone breathing down my neck, and to feel what it was like to live on my own terms. For the first time, I woke up and didn't dread the day. I didn't flinch when my phone buzzed. I didn't feel like I had to explain myself to anyone. I still thought about them sometimes. Of course I did. I'd walk past a golden retriever and feel that familiar tug in my chest. I'd see a family in a restaurant and wonder if they were kind to their daughter. But the memories weren't as sharp anymore. The bitterness softened with distance. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want a confrontation. I just wanted to keep moving forward. And for the first time, I really felt like I could. It happened on a Wednesday. I was standing in the back room at work, waiting for the copy machine to stop its usual wheezing and jam-check tantrum, when I saw the email notification pop up on my phone. The subject line just said from Mom. No punctuation, no details, just that. I stared at it for a few seconds without opening it. It had been months since I'd heard anything from them. No calls, no texts, nothing. The silence had been almost peaceful, like my life had finally settled into a quiet rhythm where I didn't have to brace myself for guilt or confrontation every time my phone lit up. But now there it was. I didn't open the email until I got home. I sat on the edge of my bed with my laptop open and my dinner going cold on the desk. It started with Dear Sarah, which already felt weird, like they didn't know how to talk to me anymore and defaulted to something formal. My mom said she'd been thinking about me a lot, that she missed me, that they all did. She wrote about how the house felt different without me and how Max still went to my room sometimes and whined outside the door. She apologized, said they shouldn't have gone on that trip without including me, that it wasn't fair and it wasn't right. She wrote that they never meant to hurt me, that they thought I needed space and didn't realize how much they'd taken me for granted. She said they were trying to do better, that things were different now, that I was welcome home anytime I wanted, no questions, no lectures, just a clean start. I read it twice and closed the laptop. The next day my dad called. I didn't pick up, but he left a voicemail. He sounded tired. Not angry, not cold like before, just older. He said he understood why I left. That he didn't at first, that it took him a long time to really sit with it, but that he got it now. He said he didn't expect me to come home or forgive anything, but that if I ever wanted to talk, even just once, he'd answer. I didn't delete the message, but I didn't return the call either. A week later, Ethan texted me. Nothing dramatic. Just a photo of Max sleeping on the couch with a caption that said, "Still your spot." Jacob followed with something similar, an old video of the two of us from a birthday party years ago, with a dumb cake fight in the backyard. Logan sent a single message that just said, "Miss you." I didn't know what to do with any of it. Part of me wanted to believe them, to let go of everything and walk back into their lives like nothing had happened. Another part of me, the quieter, steadier part that had grown stronger since I left, kept reminding me why I had walked away in the first place. They were sorry now, but they weren't sorry then. And if I hadn't left, if I hadn't made it impossible to ignore, would they have even noticed? Or would I still be sitting at that dinner table, pretending not to care that they were packing for a trip I wasn't invited to? I didn't reply right away. I went to work, came home, did my laundry, answered emails, watched dumb shows with Mariah, and ate leftover cookies from Ken's night shift. I tried to live my life the way I had been, quietly, slowly, in my own space. But the messages stayed with me. Not because they were manipulative, not even because they made me angry, but because they reminded me of a version of myself I hadn't seen in a while. The version that used to wait for scraps of affection and call it love. The version that smiled through clenched teeth just to keep the peace. I wasn't that girl anymore. Not completely. And I wasn't sure if I wanted to be their daughter again, either. At least, not in the way I used to be. I replied to my mom's email about 2 weeks after I first read it. I waited until a Sunday night, when the city outside my window had gone quiet, and the usual hum of buses and weekend voices faded into something more still. I wrote it slowly, paragraph by paragraph, trying not to soften it too much or fall into the trap of making it easier for them to feel okay about everything. I wasn't trying to hurt anyone. I just wanted to be honest in a way I hadn't been allowed to be before. I told her I appreciated the apology, but that it didn't erase what happened. That it wasn't just about the Florida trip, or the dogs, or the note. It was about all the years before that when I was the default solution, the background character in their lives who got called on when it was convenient and ignored when it wasn't. I said I wasn't angry anymore, but I was still cautious. I told her I wasn't coming home, that the place I had now, however small or temporary or imperfect, was mine, and that I wasn't willing to give that up just to make anyone else more comfortable. I explained that I was open to staying in contact, but only if it came with respect. No guilt tripping, no rewriting the past, no pretending things didn't happen. I said if they wanted to talk, they had to listen. If they wanted me around, they had to actually include me. Not as a helper or an afterthought or a built-in caretaker, but as a person with boundaries and needs and limits. I ended the email by saying I loved them, but I loved myself too, and that I wasn't willing to trade one for the other anymore. It took them a few days to respond. My mom wrote back first, and it was short. She said she understood, even if it hurt. She said she was proud of me for standing up for myself, even if it was hard to hear. My dad sent his reply a day later. He said he'd been thinking about everything I wrote, and that he didn't have a defense. Just that he wanted to try, to earn a better version of whatever came next. The text from my brothers changed too. They got less defensive, less sarcastic. Jacob started sending me random updates about his new job. Ethan told me about a girl he was seeing. Logan just sent me memes, but that felt like his way of keeping the line open. They didn't push me to visit. They didn't ask when I was coming back, and that made it easier to actually want to talk. It wasn't perfect. It still isn't. There are days when I ignore their messages for hours, not because I'm mad, but because I still need that space. There are moments when they say something careless, and I have to remind myself to breathe instead of react. But for the first time in years, I don't feel trapped by my last name. I don't feel like I owe them more than I have to give. I didn't go home for the holidays. I sent a card. I answered a phone call. I smiled when Max barked in the background, and my mom held the phone up to the dog like he understood. But I stayed in Portland. I spent the day with people who knew my story and didn't need me to pretend everything was fine. That was enough. That was mine. And I was finally okay with that. It's been a little over a year since I left. I still remember the sound of that suitcase zipper, the quiet click of the door behind me, the feeling of walking down the street with no plan beyond a way. Now I wake up most mornings in a room that smells like fresh coffee and thrifted candles, surrounded by books I chose, clothes I paid for, and people who see me, not the version they expect or need me to be, but the person I actually am. Work's gotten better too. That temp job turned into something steadier, and now I'm helping manage a small team. It's not glamorous, but I like the rhythm of it. I like knowing I can take care of myself. I've even started looking into night classes, nothing formal yet, just exploring some things I never gave myself the space to consider before. Writing, design, maybe something creative that doesn't come with a script. The biggest change, though, isn't what I do. It's what I no longer tolerate. I don't apologize for setting limits anymore. I don't twist myself into shapes to make people comfortable. If someone crosses a line, I say so. If someone can't respect that, they don't stay in my life. Simple as that. That was the hardest thing to learn, how to love people without shrinking for them. But once I did, everything got a little clearer. I don't hate my family. I don't even feel bitter anymore. But I also don't feel like I owe them anything just because we share blood. That kind of peace doesn't come from forgiveness. It comes from clarity, from knowing you did everything you could, and finally accepting that some people won't see you until you stop standing in the shadows they built for you. I've had people reach out after hearing parts of my story. Some of them strangers. Some of them friends I hadn't heard from in years. They talk about feeling stuck, about not knowing how to take that first step, about being afraid of what happens after you finally say enough. And every time, I tell them what I had to tell myself. Leaving doesn't mean you failed. Sometimes it means you finally heard yourself over the noise. So that's it. That's where I am now. Thanks for reading all of this. I know it's a lot, but it helped me more than I expected to write it down and put it somewhere that didn't feel like a cage. If you've ever been through something like this, if you've ever had to choose yourself over the people who said they loved you, I'd really like to hear how you handled it. How did you know it was time? What changed for you once you walked away? Let's talk.